Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu pakhair agale ni hao chunashumme washmale. Ohio Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, hola, boyo, privyet, kaifa hal, hale shuma chatore, ahlan wa salam, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabia, bhalli kare aaya. Hoş geldin and ayo sayo khuya morachi wattochi haljot kali mera khairutan, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and with me, I'm really lucky to have been joined by my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajra Satti. We hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your Tuesday mornings with us. But first things first, hello Hajra, Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for introducing me. So it is a chilly morning in Islamabad, and the temperature has certainly plunged down. But it also happens to be the International Human Rights Day, and we have seen that how much human rights are essential whenever we talk about a prosperous society, whenever we talk about the dignity of the individuals, of the human beings. So in order to further have that visual representation of what does this day means to us as a society and as a human beings, our very worthy team members Sajeel, Dogar and Rahila have prepared a report on that.
And Hajra, in addition to this, obviously, you know, we certainly would want to include the Prime Minister's message, the Premier of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, because as Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif Saab said, that the world should not turn a blind eye to the gravest human tragedies of our time in Palestine and Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And ladies and gentlemen, to be honest, I think that, you know, that such messages will certainly reiterate the message on this day, which happens to be the Human Rights Day. And in addition to this, I think all of us really need to play a role, you know, as members of the society, wherever unfortunately human rights are being violated. We need to make sure that we raise our concerns, that we raise our voices, and we talk about it. That's exactly how we would love to start our day today. Our two team-worthy members, you know, may it be Sajeel Dogar and Rahila, they collaborated and made a wonderful package for this day. Please go ahead and let's take a look.
Human Rights Day is observed annually on 10th of December. It commemorates the anniversary of one of the world's most groundbreaking global pledges, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This Universal Declaration shows the way to shared beliefs and tactics that can help resolve conflicts and create the security and stability the world requires. This landmark document protects the inalienable rights that everyone is entitled to as a human being, regardless of race, religion, language, political or other opinions, national or social origin, birth, or any other status. This year's theme, Our Rights, Our Future, Right Now, is a call to acknowledge the importance and relevance of human rights in our everyday lives. We have the chance to change perceptions by speaking up against misinformation and countering disinformation caused by hate speech. Human rights are not merely abstract ideas. They offer concrete standards, laws, and a vital framework that protect against abuses, violations, and other damages, ensuring everyone, everywhere, can live in dignity and respect. Human rights are a powerful force for good. Protecting human rights is not only about addressing present injustices, it's about driving significant social change by reshaping unjust societies and empowering marginalized groups. On this day, we encourage everyone to stand up right now for their rights for a better future. This is the time for action to reinforce a global movement for human rights.
And not just that, for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, you know, the fans of Pakistan cricket team are certainly in for a treat, as Pakistan will be facing South Africa today. And obviously, you know, for me, it'll be really interesting, you know, a few weeks, you know, from here onwards, because we are not just playing T20s, we're playing one days and we're playing test cricket as well against South Africa, and the series will go on till January. So the three-match T20 series between Pakistan and South Africa will begin today. The first match between the two teams will be played in Durban in preparation for the series. The national squad held a 3-hour training session in Durban. During the session, the players take part in batting, bowling and fielding drills. Following the T20 series, the two teams will also compete in 3 one-day internationals and 2 test matches. Wow. And that too, and I think something that we really need to kind of keep in mind is that, you know, our team has been in a transition. We've seen a lot of youngsters coming in and play for us as well and get results. But ladies and gentlemen, Champions Trophy will be hosted by Pakistan's. So that's what we are looking at. So we really need to kind of make sure that we have the final 11 with us.
Right, and delving again into the fields of sports. So Pakistan has defeated Peru and Hong Kong in the World Team Champion Squash Championship rather. The Pakistan squash team made a remarkable start at the World Team Squash Championship, winning both the matches in the pool stages against the Peru and Hong Kong. In the first group H match, Pakistan defeated Peru 2-1. Diego Elias of the Peru beat Pakistan's Asim Khan 3-0 to take 1-0 lead. In the second match, Pakistan's Noor Zaman outplayed Rafael Galvez 3-2 to level the match 1-1. In the deciding match, Nasser Iqbal defeated Olsono 3-0 to secure a victory. In their second match, Pakistan outplayed host Hong Kong by 2-1. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful development. And especially I've grown up with my mom always talking about, Pakistan had a really, really vibrant presence in the courts of squash, particularly. I mean, cricket was always very, we were very invested as a team, as a nation into the sports of cricket. But I think squash was something that my mom very fondly talks about it. And there were so many big names. But again, now moving to another championship, that is of the MMA championship. 2024, Pakistan's Mohammad Saqib qualifies for the final. Wow, that's wonderful. Pakistan's Mohammad Saqib reached the final of the Gamma World MMA Championship 2024 in Jakarta. Saqib demonstrated exceptional skill and determination in the under 18 52 plus kilogram category. In the semi-final, Mohammad Saqib defeated Kazakhstan's Akiz Khan to win that championship. Congratulations to our very beloved player out there, and may you ace the entire tournament. So now when the red lights of the camera went on, Shahzad was asking me a question, about
the different question, a very different answer though.
Yeah. He was asking me about, what is your thought about, this digital matchmaking or the Rishta apps, or I don't know, modern dating apps, or whatever name you want to tell them. So I told him that I've never tried them because I'm already married, alhamdulillah. But having said so, I mean, I really don't mind it because there are people who have benefited from the very broadened horizons out there, and especially for the people who are living in the Western world, because they're struggling to find potential suitors or the matches that can help them make a good houses or homes out there. So this provides them an enlarged pool out there. But I mean, this is one side of the story. There are other side of the story.
So other side of the story, in addition to this, obviously, while we are talking about, dating, unfortunately, over here in our part of the world, in our religion, is haram as well. And that's how it's actually taken, and there's no other perception about it. Now, in addition to this, obviously, for any parent to kind of look for good rishtas, I think, what they really need is a sustainable system or a plan or an ecosystem. And I think that these digital rishta apps kind of actually solve our, or give us a solution. But in addition to this, imagine that, if there was a rishta auntie somewhere in US, I mean, I've got case study over here with me, ladies and gentlemen, I can share it with you. Have been charging $700. They want to present the bride in a way where the other family actually wants them. So it's not really important whether you were actually like that or not. So they groom them, present them in front of the bride, groom's family. And in addition to this, it's not really working out for people. So do you think that this digital Rishta app ecosystem is actually going to work for us? Because I still remember somebody actually told me that in Saudi Arabia, if there was a girl who was at the age of marriage, they would put up a white flag. And that's the system that, that people can recognize, come to them, ask for the Rishta and
I think we are really transitioning towards, or have transitioned to the modern digital world. And how does this digital matchmaking, because the lot of, in Pakistan, not just the Rishta apps, I think it is solidified on the digital spaces, how by making their profiles or making their biodata, their entire information, which is documented there. And I mean, when the system started initially, so there were some apprehensions about the privacy of the girl, because this is something, that in South Asia, privacy is really, really a cultural norm which is hold very dear to us. But I mean, how is this entire digital ecosystem unfolding for the Rishta apps, for the digital matchmaking, and how does we millennial feel about it? So to further develop this conversation, I'm very glad that I have been joined all the way from someone from the Toronto, from the Canada, who's going to share her insights onto this new evolving digital ecosystem. She happens to be Hira. Haider, assalamu alaikum, Hira, and thank you so much for coming on our show.
Walaikum assalam. I am absolutely thrilled to be on the show. PTV holds a very special place in my heart because back home in Canada, what we do is that we watch our old channels, and PTV's been a cult classic kind of a thing where we always go to.
And there's so many new things which we would love to talk about. First of all, obviously the entire ecosystem of these digital Rishta applications. What's your take on that? And then we'll unfold the conversation.
My personal take on it is that, to begin with, I am single. And of course, my parents are on the lookout. My mother's my best friend, so I trust her to go through the entire process in a very conventional way. I had a couple of friends who recommended that, why don't you try the modern age matchmaking system? Personally speaking, as a professional journalist and public figure myself, I don't feel comfortable with doing so because, again, there is a risk of privacy being breached. But I have seen that it has worked for a couple of individuals, some couples which I know personally as well. So there are two sides of the coin. The first one is the fact, of course, when you are speaking to somebody online. Um, you're not too sure if they're speaking to two, three other people, which personally, I feel like if I were ever to join, which I probably may not, would be kind of a uncomfortable situation for me because I feel like the problem in our generation is that we have so many options that we find it difficult to commit.
And that's
And I feel
exactly,
like
Hira, what
with
I
the
would want to pick up on. Now, imagine that, for you to say, and obviously I truly get it, for you to say that you certainly are not sure whether that particular person who you spoke with is only speaking with you or is actually speaking with two or three other people. Now, imagine if we are to speak about this ecosystem, everybody's looking for a potential partner. Now, don't you think that they should have the right to speak to whoever they want and then eventually decide that, okay, I think that I'll probably go with this one or that one because we match, or there's more understanding, or there's more I don't know how things work, because we are the products of arranged marriages, and 80% of the marriages in Pakistan takes place by arranged marriages or rishta wali aunties.
So, see, now I'm going to give you an overview of Canada. There are many different kinds of families which reside there, but things are changing even in the Rishta process when it comes to arranged marriages. When it's an arranged marriage, it's not like you see the individual on the day of the nikah, or that you don't talk, or that you don't meet. Even in an arranged marriage system, families come together, the girl and the boy, they go out, they speak to one another. It's a very open process, which is ongoing. And with matchmaking apps, that's also an option. Either in either situation, I feel like what's important is that when you are speaking to one particular person, give them time, give yourself time, and have proper focused conversations. Because it's very easy to stray here and there with multiple options. I'm not saying that, just the one person who you're talking to in an arranged marriage system or on an app, they have to be like your ride or die, the first person, you're just going to get married to them. Obviously, that's not how it works. But when you are talking to one particular individual, focus your energies onto them. Only then can you make a calculated decision.
But Hira, when okay, so let's unfold this conversation even further. So we've seen apps is a one thing, right? So in Pakistan, I mean, I don't know how much popular are the apps or how much momentum they are gaining here in our country. But I think that the sort of shift that I've seen is that there is a digital matchmaking processes happening on the WhatsApp. So what happens is that, there are profiles, their biodata, which is documented, and it is sent to the potential suitors or the parties out there. And then the Rishtas aunties are very central in the transmission of those digital profiles or the biodata trend, right? So if you see that, how do you feel about this entire scenario evolving? And I'm pretty sure it is also the same in the Canada and in the, US or in the Western world, because this digital WhatsApp matchmaking is also happening out there. So do you think that there is certain fallout to it? So if we can have it, address it through our proper conversations?
So I believe that, of course, this is a good way of getting to know different families and suitors which are out there, because we are no longer in the Jane Austen or the Bridgerton era where we're going to be having balls, everyone's going to be coming together, we're going to be having suitors, we're going to be having the diamond of the season. There's nothing as such ongoing. So it's important to know what is out there, what are the options. But I think a big hitch is the fact that we take majority of the time we take these profiles just on face value, in the sense that we have an ideal in our mind of what the ideal match would be. Based on that, sometimes there might be a great proposal perhaps from another country, and you say, nah, I'm not going there. You never know, perhaps you and the individual would have great chemistry, things would work out. So sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone, and if something out of the ordinary is coming to you in a digital form, have a look at it. I think also in our era, there is a plus side to things because we have social media. So if there is a potential match that you feel like you might be interested in on paper, you can always head onto social media. You can always head onto LinkedIn, have a look at the way that they are engaging with content. You can tell a lot about an
I
individual,
think
not everything, but a lot
absolutely.
through that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the digital scrutiny is very much essential because nowadays I think we millennials have a very vibrant digital footprint. But Hira, now also let's dissect the concept of the Rishta aunties and let's talk about some of the toxic elements within this entire matchmaking process because I've been through this process, countless people have been through this process, and let's not forget it's a very, very stressful process.
True.
And especially when your parents are matching you with the potential suitor that you do not find very common grounds, or you do not have that same length, wavelength, or the mindset you're sharing with. I mean, how can we address the root of colorism within the society? Because I've seen so many people explaining to you that how the other parties were very blatantly commenting on the skin color, and this is not at all the Islamic value. I don't know where these things come from, because if you see, the rank of Hazrat Bilal within the Islamic community, he was beloved of Allah Ta'ala. If you see Prophet Musa, he has been mentioned 135 times in the Quran, and he was a black man, most beloved of Allah. How do you think we can address this colorism that exists within the society? I wouldn't call it racism, I would call it colorism within the South Asian communities.
I find it very interesting when South Asians look at an individual, may it be a man or a woman, when they are dark toned. Because first things first, the concept of being fair, it's a very Caucasian concept, right? We have seen it in Europe, we've seen it in North America. When you look at the Middle East, so I was raised in Dubai and I've traveled to Iraq multiple times. When you look at the locals, the local Arabs, they are sometimes even darker than some Pakistanis, but that is not really an issue within their communities. So the issue roots from the fact that desis, as we say in Northern America, which is, you can say, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans, they all come under that entire wrap. The fact that colorism is such a big issue is because we are still colonized from here. It's still a problem. And may it be from here or may you be addressing it vocally, this is also another issue why rishtas are not happening. Because I feel like that where there is a lot of pressure on men with regards to their financial status and how secure they are, how they'll be able to provide for a woman, the entire pressure of how a woman appears, how she looks, is the one and only thing that is immediately initially judged when it comes to the rishta process.
Or probably वो
Unfortunately,
चाय कैसे बनाती है? I think we certainly need to kind of
और
progress
रोटी
from
गोल है कि नहीं
और
है?
रोटी गोल है कि नहीं है और दुबली है कि नहीं है और उसकी नाक ठीक है कि नहीं है. So I
why do
think
you think people why do you think people are miserable in marriages? Problem तो यहीं से start होती है कि आप इन छोटी छोटी चीजों को लेकर उनको एक बेस बना देते हैं.
which is why I'm going to move on to my next question. Now, imagine that, for us to speak and say and be vocal about it is for our audiences to kind of know that these aren't the things that people should be doing. Number two, where we spoke about the scrutiny part of it, do you think that when we speak about the digital Rishta applications, there's more opportunity for scrutiny, or do you think that there's more scrutiny with the Rishta aunties? Because I don't know, if I've ever come across a Rishta auntie, I do not get a good vibe from her. No matter what, if there's any Rishta auntie watching us right now, I'm sorry, but I don't know, I've never ever gotten like a great vibe from Rishta auntie, because they would hide facts, they would not say the right thing, probably they won't tell the family that if, the boy's father was married twice or thrice, whatnot. So there are a lot of hidden facts. So do you think that the digital Rishta application ecosystem is better than the Rishta auntie?
I would not say that it is better. The thing is that it depends on how your family is. For example, I'll give my example. Like I said, I'm a single woman, and I have entrusted my responsibility to my mother. She's my best friend. She's an extremely wise individual. The Rishta auntie culture in Canada is somewhat similar sometimes to the toxic culture in Pakistan. But I'll tell you something. Our generation needs to understand that we need help. There are multiple individuals who are in relationships right now. They are not being able to attain a successful marriage status because they don't know how to navigate through things. If you have a family who respects the girl as a human being, as an individual, gives her the status that Islam has given, especially when it comes to the rishta process, that girl will always be comfortable during the rishta process with rishta aunties because boundaries are set.
Right.
There are multiple Rishantis that my mother had interacted with. She set certain boundaries. Things were very transparent. And some aunties, what they do, it's brilliant. They just introduce the moms and they say, I think that these two families would work well together. Now it's up to you. So it's just a matter of connecting two families. But when it comes down to presenting a man or a woman in a certain way, that is where the issue lies. And that's why it's extremely important for parents, especially when it comes to the Rishta aunties, to not blindly trust them. Do your own research.
And I
Let
think
the girl, especially.
yeah, you've wrapped it up wonderfully well as well. And thank you
Yeah.
so much, Hira, for being with us, to be in
But
conversation.
yeah, one last question before we wrap up this segment, and that is related to, thank you so much, Hira, for saying that we need to be more socially vigilant when it comes to making such an important decision of your life. And I think this is the one of the most important and one of the most difficult part of it. I mean, digitally scrutinizing or socially scrutinizing them, because you cannot, there are not tangible barometers how you can check someone's emotional security there. And for me, emotional security is even more important than financial security.
Wow.
If that person is respectful,
Yes.
if that person can manage that anger very well, or if that you know, he knows how to regulate his emotions. But now moving on to another important aspect, that is the ageism that exists within our culture, and specifically within the rishta or matchmaking processes, right? So our parents' generation, probably 20, 25 was the age in which they used to get married, and now people are getting married in early 30s. So how do you see this process evolving, and the toxicity, you know, the questions that appear if you cross the 30s? How can we address that?
बड़ा नहीं है यार बात, लड़की की उम्र नहीं होगी. I mean,
उम्र
all of
निकल
these
गई
questions,
है.
yeah.
भाई मैं ये कहती हूँ कि अगर इंसान जिंदा है अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, तो उम्र तो बढ़ेगी ही. ये तो एक फैक्ट है ही है. बट द थिंग इज दैट हम लोग ये भूल जाते हैं, इंसान ये चीज भूल जाता है कि किस्मत का हाल वो लिखने वाला है. अल्लाह जब अपनी हिकमत के हिसाब से आपके नसीब में लिखता है कि शादी होनी है, किस तरह से होनी है, कब होनी है, that's all Allah's doing. You can be looking for a match for your girl from the age of 18, मगर अगर उसके नसीब में लिखा है कि वो 35 की एज में उसकी शादी होगी, तो वो उसी एज में होगी, और उसमें अल्लाह की हिकमत है.
Because
So
he's not Leonardo
जो
DiCaprio,
माँ
yeah.
बाप, sorry,
Probably because he's not Leonardo DiCaprio.
that's a whole other segment. आप लोग मुझे
Yeah,
फिर से invite
I
करिएगा,
know,
उसमें
but
मैं बहुत
since
कुछ
we
बोल
have to wrap
सकती
it up.
हूँ.
Thank you so much, Hira, for your wonderful time. Thank you so much for your addition. Thank you so much for your thoughts as well. And very quickly, towards the end, just to wrap it up, for everybody, for any parents who are out there, obviously matchmaking is important. But please, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to give you the reference of Hazrat Ali alayhi salam and Bibi Fatima. Imagine the angels came down to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, said that, you know, Allah has asked that, you know, Ali should be married to Fatima or wedded to Fatima as well. But Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam didn't yet say yes to it. He went up to his daughter and said, do you agree in marrying Ali alayhi salam? And from here onwards, you know, the entire wedding actually took place, or the marriage took place as well. So Allah has given the right to the parents to ask their daughters first if you want to be wedded with that particular person or not.
True. And I think consent is extremely important. Without consent, the nikah is makruh. It's not halal at all. So now moving on to a very interesting aspect, and that is to, we are approaching the month of December. It is already December and we are approaching Christmas. So we have seen the Christmas trees that are propping up around the world, especially in the Western world. So Vatican City, Christmas magic. The Vatican City has unveiled its stunning Christmas tree in the St. Peter's Square, a majestic 29-meter tall from the Toronto. The tree is not only a beautiful sight, but also a symbol of region's commitment to sustainable forestry practices. The tree's removal will ensure the natural exchange of the forest over the next decade, making it truly eco-friendly gift. And I think it's essentially important that we talk about the eco-sustainability and eco friendly ways to have our festival
And the most
celebrated.
interesting bit, I've always been asking this question from my daughters, what's the capital of Vatican City? Ladies and gentlemen, it is Vatican City. All right, but moving on from here onwards, Macau celebrates 25th anniversary with Lights Festival. Wow, Macau's Light Up Macau 2024 festival showcases the region's vibrancy and charm through diverse lighting installations and theme light shows. The event theme, Symphony of Time and Space, aims to promote tourism. The festival will run until February 28, 2025, featuring colorful light installations and interactive displays. Wow, just look at that. I want to be in Macau right now.
And I think that's the beauty of yeah.
Paid holiday.
Why do you want a paid holiday, right? I think you
Not
have
enjoy
enough of the stock up for your next 3 generations that you can go and enjoy it, right? But that was just on a lighter tone. But now moving on to another very important aspect, and that has been over the place, and there's a lot of conversation going on. That is the topic of the mental health, and especially on the workplaces. And I'm very glad these sort of conversations are happening here. But in order to measure how much these conversations catapult into the field of reality, they're not just the talk, but they're actually walking the talk. So in order to further develop the conversation on the prioritizing mental health at the workplace, we are very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Saima Kalsoom. She happens to be a consultant psychologist. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saima, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum assalam.
Wonderful to have you over here.
Absolutely.
First things first, because we were talking about mental health. How much do you think an employee's mental health can be disturbed if they do not get paid on time? Just like that. That's a question.
I would say highly significant positive correlation technically.
Yeah.
I mean, then why one should work? Huh?
Yeah.
और
So
time पे तनख्वाह नहीं देनी, 3 महीने तनख्वाह नहीं
So
मिलनी, क्या
your biological well-being is driven by your pay.
obviously.
So it's very, very
And your ability to pay your overheads, you know,
Yes.
so may it be child fee, may it be house rent, may it be electricity
And I
bills.
think for men it's very, very important because they have to run their own houses.
उन्होंने घर में उस तारीख को पैसे देने हैं.
Absolutely.
You know, there's no other way around.
They are
That cannot get late.
The bread earners,
Yeah.
right? So now, Dr. Simon, let's develop this conversation forward. I mean, we are having this conversation and having a robust mental workspace. So what is exactly the, I would say, the barometer or the arena of the workspaces in Pakistan, and how much do you think these conversations are happening that are for more practical purposes, right? They're not just happening just for the sake of conversation.
Thank you so much for asking this question. It might be a new concept for many people, but it's not a new one with reference to Pakistan even, because when I was doing my master's, so I had to decide whether I should go for clinical or which side of psychology. You know, I did industrial organizational, and which is pertaining to the well-being and mental health of the organization and employees. And you know, this era, this concept in this area of psychology is so rich. I mean, you can talk about, I was just listening the first segment of your show, and you guys were talking about the marital relationships. And I was just thinking the conflict between your paid or unpaid role, or the work-family balance, or the work-family, conflict. And this is very pertinent area of research and application in terms of organizational psychology. And considering Pakistan, so we are highly traditional society, and I believe there is no harm to be a traditional society.
True.
See, we need to value our roles, being men, being women, or being maybe another gender or transgender. Roles should be your choice.
Right.
Based upon the human element to that particular individual. It is my choice to cook, and it is a choice of Shahzad not to cook, or maybe to be a professional chef.
Right.
Or take a role which is very much maybe feminine constructively
I never
in
even felt
nature.
like getting married. My parents got me married.
Yeah. So I think this is the right time to talk about mental health at workplace, because lots of women are getting into the work arenas, and they are occupying multiple roles, and they have to balance between those roles.
But
Children,
right.
family, their profession, and they have to excel into their profession. So it is very
and
much
it's very
work.
hard, I mean, juggling between so many roles,
Yes,
especially for a
yes.
woman, because you have to look after your household, you have to look
Yes.
after raise your kids, nurture them, and also look after your husband at the same time and working here. But Dr. Saima, now let's talk about, when we talk about the organizational parameters and within the mental health aspect. So there are a lot of people who are free riders, right, within our team, because usually organizations consist of the teamwork, right? They're feeding onto your work, but they're not contributing anything, right? And that is creating a lot of stress. How to deal with those elements within our teamwork who are free riders?
Okay, so free rider or maybe freelancers, but still they are occupying multiple jobs or tasks. So they are doing lots of multitasking.
In papers, right?
Lots of multitasking. So whenever there is a multitasking, there are many pressures. There are multiple source of stress. So you need to balance with that. Work life is really changing, not in terms of Pakistan, globally, and we are far behind. I mean, we can understand. I think what we need to understand is through our HR policy. HR policy is very pertinent. What we are talking about, human rights or hukuk al-ibad. It's all about hukuk al-ibad. Considering the needs of the human being. I mean, if somebody is having a child who's not well at home, how she or he can perform at
Exactly.
the
And
workplace.
in addition to this, Dr. Saima, I think that's a wonderful point, which was raised by Hajra over here. But now let's bring it back to where it will have an impact on your mental health. Now imagine if there's a free rider in your team who's actually kind of feeding himself
Or multiple
on
free
your,
riders, right?
or on your
Plenty of
performances because of the fact that that they do not have anything of their own.
Absolutely.
That's number one. There's another dilemma, and that dilemma is that all of a sudden you do see that unfortunately in institutions over here in our country, I mean, that's a big problem, that there's no meritocracy. Now imagine if somebody could call somebody who was very influential, can certainly take my place, Hajra's place, or anyone else's place. I'm not saying, this is for an example, we've been here for alhamdulillah 13 years. May Allah keep us going that way, alhamdulillah.
You're doing wonderful.
Yeah, and so how do you think that it's going to impact that particular person's mental health, knowing that he was giving his 100% or she was giving her 100%, and then all of a sudden there was somebody who called and you're gone, so now you actually might have to even shift your career because you certainly do not have those resources.
Shahzad, wonderful question again. It's a very long and I would say very advanced debate in organizational psychology. When we take Pakistani perspective, we are still on a very biological level. You talked about pay. I mean, we are still talking about our biological needs. And then it comes to the organizational justice or the policy of equity where, if I'm working equal hours or I'm putting equal amount of energy or effort, so I should be paid equal to my counterpart maybe or the other employee as well. But see, I think there are many human or individual elements into it. First, the main parameter or main yardstick of organizational psychology or maybe the mental health workplace is right person for the right job.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, now West is on the job design model. They're not saying right person. They're saying person cannot be wrong. There should be a right job for a person.
Yeah.
So see human rights and see the element and see how they are, thinking and how they are creating jobs for people.
Absolutely.
So I used to say, my students, please don't look up to us. That we will say, oh, this is your dream job. Please come and do it. Create your job.
Yeah.
So I
Stand
think
out, right?
that is the first principle in terms of legality, in terms
Thank
of
you so
HR
much
policy.
for saying that, because there's a reference points to it as well. Now imagine that the top 500 Fortune companies, what they say now is that we do not want your degree. So whichever university you went to, if you can do what we are asking you to do, you're a perfect match for us. Now I think that's something that we really need to kind of move on to.
And I think a lot of also people, they are venturing into the social media and the content creation. There's a lot of money involved in it. And Dr. Saima, now steering the conversation back to the mental health aspect of it. So we are witnessing, especially when we talk about the organizational structures, there are HRs there, right? And we've seen after the Me Too movement, there was a lot of stricter anti-harassment policies out there. But at the end of the day, the HR departments, they are working for the organization. Do you think that they are really out to protect the mental health of their employees, or to give a broader cover to the organization?
Okay, so another very important element of well-being, which is the emotional safety. Okay. So to be very honest, still we are not having right kind of HR system. Okay, so we are having a person who is heading the HR. He is from finance.
और वो मेरा दोस्त है.
And he might be from management, and he might be doing what he is not trained for, or maybe he's not having right kind of education for that matter. We are still looking for a field based, or maybe the competency based, or maybe the professionalism, or maybe the what I should say, the specialization based kind of personnel.
Yep.
But again, in West, now there is no specialization. It's a time of multidiscipline, where you need to be educated from multiple perspectives.
Yep.
So coming towards the workplace harassment, one thing which is very good, I think we were the first who were having the anti-harassment bill. And it is very much implementing, workplace harassment and sexual harassment. It is very much implementing into our organizations. It is part of your main HR policy.
And we do see a lot of people failing this now. And I think that it was beautiful. Thank you so much for introducing it as well. Now, very quickly, madam, because we only have 3 more minutes to go. So we have spoken about, what can certainly damage your mental health at your workplace, so, and nepotism comes into it as well, long hours, where there's no flexible working hours, so there's so many things. Now imagine for us as individuals, for you as an individual, if you are at a workplace where your mental health certainly is getting disturbed, what will be your solutions to those people?
And also, Dr. Saima, I want to club it because of the paucity of the time. I mean, a lot of people are experiencing the burnouts nowadays, right? They are, filming it, and after some time, they just don't want to go there. How can we address that burnout aspect of it?
Okay, so in ideal situation, there should be a mandatory organizational or occupational health psychologist in every organization. Okay, we are not having, people don't know these terminologies, and they are not very much aware of it. When we talk about mental health, they come up with psychiatrists, even they don't know the difference between psychologists and psychiatrists. Exactly. So coming towards you, I think emotional intelligence is one of the most important indicator. One needs to work on their emotional intelligence by getting aware of her or his self. First, we need to understand what we want. What are my emotions? What are my feelings, or how these feelings and emotions are getting affected by other people. So we need to focus or we need to fix our own feelings and emotions in order to regulate ourselves effectively.
Right, and thank you so much for saying that. I think emotional regulation is a very, very important aspect. There are lots of conversation happening, and whenever we talk about the holistic healing or holistic caring of ourselves, emotional regulation tops that entire conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Saima, for coming here, for having this wonderful conversation. And now we want to move on to another very interesting development. So Georgia City will blow up an old hotel to welcome 2025.
Wow.
The Macon-Webb County Commission on Tuesday approved a plan to implode a vacant 16-story hotel in Georgia at the midnight. On the New Year's Eve, the county spent $4.5 million last year to buy the hotel in a federal bankruptcy proceedings, and the city county has now agreed to hire a demolition firm to blow up the building at the cost of up to $2.6 million. The hotel was opened in 1970, and its guests included Elvis Presley, but it was never a financial success. Last operating as the Ramada Plaza, the hotel on the northern edge of the downtown Macon has stood vacant since it closed in 2017. Oh my God, I never knew that people spend so much money on demolition, $2.6 million.
Just imagine, I think that, if there was bankruptcy, you should have given, that particular person $2.6 million. He must have averted, bankruptcy as well.
But I guess people have a lot of money,
I mean, they're buying duct tape banana for $6 million. They're buying a white canvas. There's nothing on it for $1.5 million. So inshallah, there'll be days, Hajra, when we'll be actually, I don't know, even if I'll have this much amount of money, I still won't spend it on a duct tape banana. But while we're at it now, imagine that we have played Scrabble, right? With English language, it's particularly easy. You can certainly be somebody in the room, who's more like, oh, look at my vocabulary and whatnot. But Nigel Richards, a 57-year-old New Zealand Scrabble phenom, won the 2024 Spanish Language Scrabble World Championship despite not speaking the language. He achieved this feat by memorizing a remarkable number of Spanish words without learning their meaning. Wow. Richards has represented his success in other languages he doesn't speak, including French. His ability to memorize and use words effectively has left opponents stunned. He's considered one of the world's best Scrabble players, earning nicknames like the Tiger Woods of Scrabble. Wow.
I mean, how was he doing that in the first place? Was he consulting the Spanish dictionary? I mean, I really have to.
Man.
Yeah, that's very
Imagine,
puzzling.
look at the memory of that guy, yaar.
Yeah.
And he became a world champion in Spanish Scrabble, where he does not speak Spanish at all.
I mean, wow, wow. Either it's that the Spanish is really closer to English, and we certainly really don't know that. But now, in order
Spaniel.
to
That's it. That's all I know.
Yeah, gracias, right? So in order to unfold our conversation on a very interesting topic, and that is related to the sporting arena, and I think whenever we talk about the digital arena, physical activity or the sporting arena is as essential as when we talk about the holistic healing. So there's a president of the Pakistan Rowing Federation who is going to unroll the conversation on the National Rowing Championship. We are very glad that we have been joined by Hamdan Nazir. Assalamu alaikum, Hamdan, and thank you so much for joining us on PTV World this morning.
Thank you so very much, Hajra and Shahzad. I actually totally got lost into that Scrabble thing instead of thinking about rowing and whatever was happening here in Pakistan.
You certainly happen to be the expert on it as well, and you're one of those people who certainly needs to answer our questions today as well. First of all, congratulations on a very successful conduction of the National Rowing Championship, where Army actually clinched women's, Navy secured men's title as well. The 37 men and 4th Women National Rowing Championship concluded at Lakeview Park, Islamabad. Tell us about it, all about it.
As a federation, we have some obligations. We have to conduct competitions consistently on a regular basis, and we try to conduct them all over the country. This time around, it was in Rawal Lake. It is almost an ideal water body for conducting rowing competitions. Islamabad is lucky in that sense. We don't have such a body in Lahore. We don't have such a body in Peshawar or other cities, but in Karachi and Islamabad only. So this time around, it was conducted in Islamabad. The championship was, sponsored by some banks, and basically it was organized with the help of Army organization structure as well. So it all went well, and we had three, I would say, fun-filled days. Basically, there were some real good competitions in which national records were made, and a few players were found out, few very good players were found out, and new talent, young budding talent. So it all went very well. And it was eventually the prize distribution was conducted, and the chief guest was Corps Commander Tankov.
Right,
was,
Hamdan. So whenever we talk about the rowing championship, obviously it's a sport that cannot be played overall because you need the water or the spaces, water bodies out there. So what are you doing, number one, to popularize this concept among the young people out there? And obviously there must be certain specific places that you might have in the mind in order to popularize that sport. And how expensive is it to get into this particular sporting arena?
Yeah, Hajra, excellent question indeed. I was about to come to this point. Basically, in countries like Pakistan and even in the other developing countries, rowing has not been so glamorous or so popular for the same reason that it is relatively an expensive game. So government has to chip in, and maybe some big businesses also. For instance, if you want to buy a set of rowing boats, this is going to cost you like at least 5 crore Pakistani rupees for one set. So this is no easy a task for anybody, for a private club, for, even for a business, small business concern. So basically, wherever the rowing is popular and wherever rowing, the world champions are coming from, the government is always there behind all the big concerns.
Hamdan bhai, there's one simple question now, and I imagine that, first of all, congratulations to you for the successful conduction of the event. Number two, now imagine that this is a sport which Olympians certainly participated within the Olympics as well.
True.
Now, for Pakistan, we do not participate in a lot of sports in Olympics. Do you think in days to come, we will have a team from Pakistan to represent us in rowing in Olympics? Because that's exactly where our direction needs to be.
Yeah, again, Shahzad, that's basically the key question. We are a bit distant from that future, but we do have great potentials. in the last indoor Asian Championships, which is not basically the Olympic sport, the indoor rowing championships are still not in Olympics, but World Rowing is trying to bring it to the Olympic Forum also. So in the last Asian Olympic rowing championships, Pakistani athletes won for the first time. They won 5 gold medals. Before that, in 2022, they had won only one. Likewise, in 2019, they had 1 gold. This time around, we have won 5 golds. So basically, the simulation or indoor rowing is getting popular very quickly in Pakistan for the same reason that it's not very expensive. So
Exactly.
what
And
I
if we are to, Hamdan bhai, if we are to kind of think that, or if we are to kind of see where we do stand in terms of how international athletes participate and compete in rowing,
Yes.
do you think that we are at par with that kind of excellency or talent or capability or capacity in terms of how our athletes perform?
Shahzad bhai, actually, the sports arena is slightly different. The world mapping is slightly different. For instance, in the power games, if you figure out, you will see that Central Asian republics, China, they are doing very good. So every sport has its basis, its foundation. Like the Ethiopians are very good in running, Kenyans are very good in running. Likewise, the rowing is basically European and Australian and New Zealand. They are leading this sport for the time being. We are not far away. We are not far behind them. But we really need to, have some input in that to
And
bring
Hamdan bhai,
our
if
athletes
we
at.
are to look at the participation, now imagine within this competition, obviously Army clinched the women's and Navy secured men's title as well. But if we are to talk about, children who are actually anxiously waiting to look for an opportunity to participate in rowing, what will be your message for them? And do you think that we will certainly in days to come see the ecosystem of rowing within the Pakistan where almost every child will have an opportunity to at least go and see if they would want to do the sport or not? Because for me, I've studied at Barrier College, and so it's a very naval complex culture and whatnot. So I've seen a lot of people and families going for rowing and those facilities being provided to them. But unfortunately for people like me, Hajra, yes, obviously because she comes from an armed background as well, we do not have this facility. Even if we go to Samba Club, there's no rowing facility. So is there any rowing facility where I can take my daughters and kind of learn how to do rowing?
Yeah, Shahzad, if you're in the big cities like Karachi, Islamabad, Lahore, you can certainly go, and there are clubs. In Lahore, we have clubs at the canal, and in Islamabad, we have clubs at the Rawal Lake. Likewise, in Karachi, there's a very good Karachi Boat Club, which is, and there are lots of children already training in that. So, yeah, it is an exclusive game like polo, like horse riding. It is an exclusive game, but still everybody has access and opportunities. If somebody wants to, have their children be trained for that, there are opportunities in big cities. Even in Quetta, we do have facility, but unfortunately, not in small cities or towns
All
so
right. Well,
far.
Right,
thank you
and
so much,
thank you
Hamdan
so
bhai,
much.
for being with us. Wonderful to be in conversation with you. And, it was lovely to know that, that there are these sports which are budding up as well. And I think for every child who's out there, for every parent who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's our responsibility, my responsibility, first of all, to take my daughters. Let's see how experience or what experience would rowing actually offer to us as well. Hajra, what's your take on this?
So I've personally speaking never done the rowing, but I think my mother has couple of the times done that, and that too in the Quetta. Yeah. And I think she won the prize for that. But I will ask you, because we were having this conversation. We were very young. Yeah. But I think that's amazing that how there are so many other sports, and I don't even know the names of a lot of sports because I'm not that invested in the
For example, ask me.
What would you ask?
Yeah, so any sport which you do not know the name, but you know the sport.
Really?
Let's see if I can guess it or not.
I don't know how to explain it like that. If I don't know the name, how I'm going to know what are the essentials to how to play. But I know that you are very, very much invested in the sports and you have a particular liking for it, and especially cricket. You're doing alhamdulillah great with the commentary, and you can't do the commentary unless you are really, really invested in that sports. And I think it's essential, equally essential for the younger people out there, for the parents out there, especially to make sure that they invest their kids with the physical sports out there and not because this is the time that they can have or clinch that time away from the screens, from the digital spaces and into the physical processes, because now we are seeing there's so many other problems that are propping up because of the excessive screen time. And I think that sports, the physical activity is the best utilitarian activity that you can do. So until next time, it's a goodbye, Allah Hafiz and good morning.
Have a great day, everybody. See you tomorrow.